Hey everybody and welcome back. If you caught the last video, we got super close to finishing up this drywall. I did this cool stamp and knockdown texture on the ceiling. In this video I'm going to lightly sand this ceiling texture so it'll paint up nice and pretty. Finish the walls with a third and skim coat of mud. And finally get into the carpentry work, which I've been really looking forward to. So let's get into it. On the ceiling texture, I'm just going to make a quick pass with this 120 grit sandpaper and my sanding pole. The idea is to use a light hand and knock off all the little sharp points on the texture. It'll just make it paint up a lot nicer later on. Don't forget your drink, because that sanding makes you awfully thirsty. The sanding pull does an awesome job out on the flats, but it doesn't get into these corners very well. And as you can see, there's some mud daubers on the wall from when I was trying to get the texture in there tight. So I just use one of these medium grit sanding sponges to make a quick pass and clean up the corner on both surfaces. Before starting the third coat, I used my 12-inch knife just to make a pass over the whole wall surface area and knock off any of the little high spots on the mud. Next, I spotted all the screws for a third and final time. And last but not least, I used my 12-inch knife to make a third and final pass on the horizontal joints, the corner beads, and my 6-inch knife in the corners. And at that point it was just rock and roll and get that third coat finished. So despite it being a cold, cloudy day today, the mud dried up nicely overnight. I'm going to dive into the final stage of this drywall because, as I mentioned before, I'm ready to get into the carpentry work. The existing house has smooth walls. I thought about adding a little texture to this new part that I'm doing, but it wouldn't match the rest. It's a little more work to do the smooth wall, but I figure I better put in the little extra effort and make it match. So what I'm going to end up doing is putting a thin skim coat over the whole wall surface area. Reason being is when you prime and paint, sometimes the difference between the paper on the drywall board and the mud joint will look different. The skim coat just gives you a consistency that, in my experience, just paints up nicer and just gives you a lot better finished product. It's a brand new day and the sun's out and shining nice and bright. If you've been watching my videos and follow my channel, you'll see that the weather around here is pretty inconsistent. With no main heat source in here yet, it actually stays pretty comfortable temperature wise with that insulation I put in earlier and all these windows on the south side. The skim coat dried up nicely, and that means it's time to get into my favorite job, sanding. But that's okay, that's the last phase in this drywall, and I don't know about you, but I'm ready to be done with it and move on. The first thing I like to do is shine my light on the wall on a steep angle. It shows every flaw and imperfection. Then I use my pole sander to make a pass over the whole wall just to get any of the obvious spots. Next, I hold the light in one hand and the sanding sponge in the other, and I just make a pass over the whole thing. This gets every little flaw and makes for such a nice wall that paints up beautiful. Almost done with the drywall. I know I've been saying it for a while, but this time it's true. Earlier in the video I talked about the inconsistency of the weather around here. Well, here's your proof. What a change from yesterday. After a good cleanup, it's finally time to get into the finish work. We're going to start with this little door. It goes to this little linen closet in the laundry room, and it's supposed to be a 6-panel, but it's so small that it only has 3 panels. As with many things in the construction trades, there's several different ways to do it. I developed a technique for hanging interior doors over the years that works good for me. I start by leveling the floor. The hinge side should be level or slightly higher than the other side. Otherwise it's going to screw up your gap on the top of the door later on. And due to inconsistencies on this floor, that's definitely the case on this one, so we're good there. Next, I measured the hinges on the door starting from the bottom up, and then I transferred the measurement over onto the framing on the hinge side. After that, I checked plumb and found out that it was slightly out. I'm going to have to back charge the framer. Oh, wait a minute, that's me. Next, I used these drywall nails to set some shims on that bottom hinge where I marked it. Next, I used my 6-foot level to plumb up and set some shims on the top hinge marking. Then I used my level as a straight edge to set the shims in the middle behind the center hinge. And at that point I set the level aside. I'm pretty much done with it. I slide the door in there, I nail it, and I use the shims to adjust the gap all the way around. Make sure that it opens and closes good, and that's a wrap on that door. With the door done and working nicely, we're pretty much out of time on this video. In the next video, we're going to get into the shelving on both closets, the door on this other closet, and who knows what else. I hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.